On June 1st, 2020, Najib Razak arrived at the Kuala Lumpur High Court for the final leg of his SRC International Trial. His defence team went before Judge Nazlan Ghazali to make their oral submission in the case. The defence stuck to their argument that Najib, who was the Prime Minister, Finance Minister and Advisor Emeritus of SRC, had no knowledge whatsoever that SRC money had made its way into his private accounts.
Aras Pleno.
By the Malaysian Insight, this is The People versus Najib Razak. Follow us into the courtroom where it all happens. I'm Patrick Teo. Mask on his face and dressed in a blue suit paired with a purple and red striped tie, Najib was greeted by a handful of supporters at the court lobby this morning. Typically, Najib would stop for a chat, a shake of hands and perhaps even a selfie. But since his trial began more than a year ago, a lot has changed, chief of which is that his trial is being conducted against the backdrop of the coronavirus pandemic. Najib's supporters therefore could only wave at him from the recommended 1 meter social distance and were no longer allowed to accompany him all the way up to Judge Nazlan's courtroom on the 5th floor. To recap, the SRC trial began on April 3, 2019. In this trial, Najib is facing 7 charges of misappropriating 42 million ringgit in SRC international funds. The 7 charges comprise 3 counts of criminal breach of trust, 3 counts of money laundering, and 1 count of abuse of power. The prosecution called 57 witnesses to the stand, while 19 defence witnesses were called. After going through all 76 witnesses, the defence closed their case on March 11, 2020, 3 months ago. If convicted, Najib could face 20 years imprisonment. Today's trial was all about the defence's oral submission. An oral submission takes place at the tail end of a trial and is essentially a last effort by the lawyers to put forward to the judge why their case should prevail. Najib's lawyer, Havinderjit Singh, or Harvey, was submitting to Judge Nazlan. The bulk of his submission was bolstered by case law and the Criminal Procedure Code. Harvey started by saying that the prosecution had not proven their case against Najib beyond a reasonable doubt. This is the standard of proof required to validate a criminal conviction. He maintained that Najib did not have any knowledge that money from SRC made its way to his accounts. The former Prime Minister had testified that at the time he thought the money was from the Saudi royal family. The lawyer accused the prosecution of disregarding evidence, especially pertaining to the 6 instruction letters. The defence had alleged that the signatures of former SRC CEO Nik Faisal Arif Kamil and former Director Subo Muhammad Yassin were forged. They cannot make their case not supported by documents or their witnesses, Harvey said. While Harvey was making his oral submission, Najib sat cross-legged in the accused dock, expression hidden behind the mask that he was wearing. When court finally broke for lunch, he made a beeline for the door, down to the lobby and into his awaiting car. After lunch, Harvey resumed his oral submission. He once again insisted that Najib really did not know that money was being transferred into his private accounts. He disagreed with the prosecution's assertion that there was sufficient evidence that Najib had knowledge from which dishonest intention could be inferred. Harvey said, quote, "There is evidence as a whole to support the inference that Najib's belief and state of knowledge were that the funds in his account at the material time were donations made to him by the Arab royalty, in like circumstances prevailing since 2011, and there was no cause to suspect anything to the contrary," unquote. Therefore, Harvey concluded, Najib had no knowledge that the money was from SRC, and the prosecution did not prove conclusively how the 42 million ringgit went into his accounts. With that, the trial adjourned for the day. Proceedings will continue tomorrow morning. This podcast is produced, written and mixed by Revati Srupamaniam. I'm Patrick Teo.